and all praises and glory to our power Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Rachak the honors, the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the whole free elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and wherever you may be, to I say Shalom and Shalom. All right, we're going to get into a various article session here. All right, and first thing on the list is 2025 government shutdown. So the government shutdown is over, but not everything is back to normal. All right, it says the government shutdown is over, but not everything is back to normal. Okay, so it says the longest government shutdown in U.S. history is officially over after President Trump signed a bill passed by Congress on Wednesday night. The federal government is reopening, but after 43 days on pause. Right, things 437, right? Things may not return to business as usual right away. For instance, federal workers are still awaiting back pay, and air travel disruptions are expected to linger. All right, so the problems that came about from the government shutdown, they still persist. And some impacts could continue much longer than 6 weeks, whether that's national parks trying to make up for lost visitor revenue or taxpayers waiting longer for refunds from a backlogged Internal Revenue Service, IRS. There's also the looming threat of another potential shutdown in the not too distant future, since this bill only funds the government through January the 30th. All right, so yeah, it says there's also the looming threat of another potential shutdown in the not too distant future, since this bill only funds the government through January the 30th. Okay, and when you think about when the shutdown happened, what was the main thing people were complaining about? All right, other than that their SNAP benefits is not having a so-called Thanksgiving. Okay, that's what most of those people were worried about. All right, well, I don't got no food, and then they'll mention Thanksgiving. All right, that's all they cared about. This fake holiday. All right, Thanksgiving. All right, and so they pretty much watch the reaction because it's all about data collection. They watch these people's reactions, how many would wild out, how many would just just all these different because there's different people in different categories, so you get different reactions. So that's different data that they can collect. Okay, and is what was so yeah. So actually, yeah. So just one more month, not counting this one, of course. So which is the month of December. Yep. Says since this bill only funds the government through January the 30th. All right. So I think that's it right there for that little article. By category. Yeah, I'm probably not going to get to all the rest of that. What does that say? Yeah, it's talking about SNAP right here. 42 million Americans rely on for food assistance has been the subject of much uncertainty and escalated legal battle in recent weeks. The Trump administration said last month that it will suspend SNAP funding in November due to the shutdown, prompting a wide outcry and a series of legal challenges. See, there you go right there. All right, basically what we were just talking about. So yeah, so now they're supposedly open and saying that there may be another shutdown because this funding is only going to last to January the 30th. All right, so basically 2 months and some change. All right, because like I said, not counting this month, you got December and then January all the way through the 30th of January, and then the remainder of this month. Okay, which leads me to I'll get this real quick. The government shutdown is over, but not everything is back to normal. So it actually leads me over here to talk about this. Okay, which I think we talked about this the other day. Issue $2,000. We'll just say, I think it was called tariff checks or whatever. Stimulus payment, November 2025. All right. IRS direct deposit relief payment and tariff dividend fact check. So let's see. Don't spend that money just yet. Rumors are circulating online that the federal government will issue new stimulus checks before the end of the year. But Congress has not passed any legislation authorizing payments, and the IRS has not confirmed that any new stimulus checks are scheduled in the coming weeks. So here's a look at the facts. Federal stimulus payments for November 2025. But we know the last round of economic impact payments came in 2021. Any future payments will require new legislation from Congress. In 2024, then the IRS announced that they would issue automatic payments to eligible people who did not claim the recovery rebate credit on their 2021 tax returns. The maximum payment was $1,400 per individual. No action was needed for eligible taxpayers to receive those payments, which went out automatically from December 2024 to January 2025. The payments were automatically direct deposited or sent by check. Eligible taxpayers received letters notifying them of the payment. The final chance to claim the $1,400 recovery rebate credit was by filing a 2021 tax return before April 15, 2025. That deadline has passed with no extensions available. Okay, so here's that current thing. Trump $2,000 tariff dividend proposals. What we know, President Trump has floated the idea of using tariff revenue for tariff dividends. All right, and we spoke about tariffs the other day. Okay, taxed these goods, which is really on the shoulders of the company, but the company passes on that that price hike right on to the consumer, the person that's purchasing whatever item that their company has. All right, that suffered from the higher tariff. So instead of the company paying this higher price, is passed on to the consumer by way of higher prices. Says a dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post on Sunday. In the post, he defended tariffs, saying the U.S. is the richest and most respected nation with low inflation, a record stock market, and strong 401k gains. Trump also pledged to begin paying down the country's $37 trillion national debt, adding that leftover funds from dividend payments will go toward the balance. And that's what he says. But anyways, currently the tariff revenue payments remain proposals. No payments have been approved. All right, during an during an interview on Fox 5 Thursday, Notice reporter Violet Gira, whatever, was asked about the chances of a tariff dividend payment actually happening. She said it was difficult to say. I will say yesterday at the White House press briefing, Carolyn Levitt was asked, is the Trump administration committed to sending these checks to American people? And their answer was yes, Jarrett said. Okay, it says, since the Truth Social post from Trump, we've gotten more details. For example, he said that the checks would be going to middle to low income people, all right? Middle to low income people, which is damn near everybody right now. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicated that would be individuals or families who make $100,000 or less. Jarrett added, so we're getting more details about the plan, but as for whether or not this actually comes to fruition, it's a bit difficult to tell. There's a couple of factors at play that have made some people skeptical. All right, so, and it says you can read more on that. Stimulus scams, rumors, All right, so yeah, and as the scriptures say, that a gift destroyed the heart, and that's all these people need is for the government to dump some more money in their laps to really think that this man means them well, because the scriptures tell you that it says never trust thy enemy, for his iron rusted, so is his wickedness. Okay, it says at the end he will declare his wickedness iron rusted. We should be able to get it. I think it's 14. I forget which chapter it's in. No, I was wrong. 12. Let's do the context. Yep. Never trust thy enemy, for as iron rusted, all right, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust had not been altogether wiped away. So he's basically just, if he goes through with this, is pretty much just to pacify people for a little while. But Esau is basically, he's definitely, continuing to work in the background to do things. All right. So that's just a small talk there. Okay. All right. So yeah, it says stimulus payment November 2025, IRS direct deposit relief payment, and tariff dividend fact check. And there ain't too many more days in November. Okay. And which we could really care less anyways. Okay, it's these people of Babylon, all right, who are looking for the government help all the time, and not really seeing that the true solution is the Lord. But of course, they're not all Israelites, anyways. Um, Probably could have played this video here, but I got my headset in. It's okay because we don't have to play that video. Just those couple small topics there. So I want to pull up the next thing here. All right, so the next topic here says FBI warns of criminals posing as ICE, urges agents to ID themselves. Okay, so FBI warns of criminals posing as ICE, urges agents to ID themselves. So yeah, this is a thing. This is happening. All right, and the scriptures tell us to. Let me get that real quick. See if I can pull it up. Okay, Ephesians 5:15. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. All right, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. All right, so yeah, and I was saying because I got clipped off. Just being aware of your surroundings, no matter where you're at. All right, out and about your daily life. Okay, you might be even at camp. All right, watching the things that are happening around you. And now, of course, the scriptures say that the angels of the Lord camp round about those that fear Him, but that doesn't mean that we're not supposed to, be aware of our surroundings. Okay, at any given time, especially in our daily life with things like this happening. Now, before I got clipped out, I was going to bring up the blue letter just to see what comes up under the word redeem. Okay, so just bear with me as I jump over there. Yep, Ephesians 5. Yep, and 16, redeeming. Exagorazo, to redeem, be payment of price. To make wise and sacred use of every opportunity for doing good, so that zeal and well-doing are, as it were, the purchase money by which we make the time our own. It's not there what I thought was going to be there. I mean, some of these are good. To do business there, buy or sell of idle people, to haunt the marketplace lounge. That's what it says about the is it Matthew, where it mentions about the men that were idle, and then uh the guy that came about the 1 penny, I believe that's the one. It talks about those that came in at the first hour and the second hour, the third hour, so on and so forth. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me see how this reads in LT maybe. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. I miss 15. So be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Yeah, that's perfect. As we go back to this, where is it? Right here. It says, where's the headline? There you go. FBI warns of criminals posing as ICE, urges agents to ID themselves. And that was a talk too, where people were screaming out about probably for a month now, maybe even more than that, but screaming out about them, like the ICE agents not identifying themselves. Okay, that's no different than what the KKK was doing back in the days. All right, so people were worried about these people not identifying themselves. Okay, so it says in the bulletin to law enforcement agencies, the FBI said criminal impersonators are exploiting ISIS image and urged nationwide coordination to distinguish real operations from fakes. Okay, criminals posing as U.S. immigration officers have carried out robberies, kidnappings, and sexual assaults in several states. Like I said, I don't know if they'll tell us what states, but it just says several states. Warns a lot, which, I mean, I guess you can kind of, well, you can't really pinpoint it, but we can always, like, you can look up, like, what states are ICE in currently, a list of the states that ICE are in. And then you probably get a good idea, which, you wouldn't know, for an absolute, but, you get the point. So it says, warns a law enforcement bulletin issued last month by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. The Bureau urges agencies to ensure officers clearly identify themselves and to cooperate when civilians ask to verify an officer's identity. including by allowing calls to a local police precinct. Ensure law enforcement personnel uh, adequately identify themselves during operation, or adequately, excuse me. Okay, ensure law enforcement personnel adequately identify themselves during operations and cooperate with individuals who request further verification. It says, here's the thing: we're going into a time period of chaos where eventually there's not going to be a law enforcement that you can call. All right, you're going to get the dee, okay, or the beep 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 beep, and that's if it rings at all. See, because there's going to be a time period of chaos that the Lord is bringing to this earth. Okay, known as Jacob's trouble, where there's no help coming. Okay, so with the real ICE agents out there, which you also have border patrol mixed up amongst them, and then you have these fake ICE impersonators. Okay, which you got criminals. Hey, you can think about Redneck Esau, right? Waiting to get a chance, on his hand on another nation, right? Because they think they have this so-called Edomite supremacy about themselves. So they got guns, all right. So they can just buy the suit, buy a mask, go get their guns. They already got a pickup truck and just go out there and do whatever. So first reported by Wired, the bulletin cites 2025 incidents involving fake immigration officers and says criminals are using immigration and custom enforcement's heightened profile to target vulnerable communities. Obviously, probably what Jake is, right? Making it, because that's what ICE is going after. So making it harder for Americans to distinguish between lawful officers and imposters while eroding trust in law enforcement. A review of public reporting confirms 4 of the 5 cases described in the bulletin. And it makes me always think about that scripture in Lamentations 4, where it says, let me get that real quick. I'll use this one. If I can pull it up, there you go. Hold on. All right, Lamentations 4. Okay. All right, it says, as for us, our eyes as yet fail for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that cannot save us. Here's the point: they hunt our steps, that we cannot go in our streets. Our end is near, our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. Okay, and the Lord says that He's bringing the evil and only evil. Okay, so these these 2/3 Israelites are part of this group here who have to be on the lookout. All right, for all right. So it says for Americans to distinguish between lawful officers and imposters while eroding trust in law enforcement. A review of public reporting confirms 4 of the 5 cases described in the bulletin. One appears to have gone unreported, suggesting the FBI drew in part on internal law enforcement information. The document was obtained by the Transparency nonprofit Property of the People. On August 7th, according to the FBI, 3 men in black vests entered a New York restaurant claiming to be ICE agents. Okay, into a New York restaurant claiming to be ICE agents. Inside, they tied a worker's hands and pulled a garbage bag over the person's head. So they probably, when it says tied, they probably had zip ties, just like ICE users, right? And pulled a garbage bag over the person's head. Another, believing the burglar's story, surrendered themselves only to be kicked to the ground and tied up as the intruders robbed an ATM. So these people are, hey, what does scripture say? My people are wise to do evil. Now, I'm not saying these are Israelites. All right, I was going to read more, but this article keeps pushing me out. So, you get the gist of it. You can look it up for yourself. FBI warns of criminals posing as ICE, urges agents to ID themselves. Okay, this is in a bulletin to law enforcement agencies. The FBI said criminal impersonators are exploiting ISIS image and urge nationwide coordination to distinguish real operations from fakes. So this is a real thing happening. And we just mentioned down below in the article, is mentioned them entering a New York restaurant. He has an actual New York hat on. Okay. I'm not saying this guy's a fake one or a real one. I'm just making a point. So let's go on and just move on, because this one is messed up. All right, so this next thing I actually saw from Elder, I think his name is Ataza. I might be wrong. I'm not good with names, but I do know his channel. Where I saw, I can't remember if I finished watching the whole video or not. Um, from Stay in the Spirit 144. I believe that's the whole name for the channel. Okay, subscribe, be edified. This is where I first saw this at here. Over these last 2 days, I believe it's probably yesterday. So it's updated November 12th, 2025. So it says Apple introduces digital ID. Now this has been a major talk as of late, especially with the UK speaking about people having to have a digital identity or they're not going to be able to work. Okay. So it says Apple introduces digital ID, a new way to create and present an ID in Apple Wallet. Okay. So digital ID offers a secure and private way for users to create an ID in Apple Wallet using information from their U.S. passport and present their ID with iPhone or Apple Watch. Now, that's very ironic how you just had this the government shutdown, okay, and people were restricted from moving different places. Maybe you took a flight, and then you got workers not getting paid, TSA workers short, furlough workers, all this kind of stuff like that. So people were unable to move through these flights. Flights were shut down, or they were backed up, whatever the case may be. So you might have went somewhere, you couldn't get back, like those chicks we talked about from that hurricane went over there, okay, and got stuck, okay. They were looking for a flight back home. Things like that were happening, right? Where flights were down, okay. Whether you were trying to leave or trying to come back, no flights were really moving out. And so now all of a sudden, okay, when the government's out of shutdown, and then all this talk of digitizing and stuff like that, it says the Apple ID wallet using information from the U.S. passport and present their ID with iPhone and Apple Watch. Okay, so let's read it to this here. This says digital ID is ready to use for age and identity verification in apps, online, and in stores. And this reminds me of what we just talked about over these last couple of days, going into China's social credit scoring system. Because over there in China, they can't do anything without their cell phone, which is connect to an app, which is either the Alipay app, or I think it's the WeChat. It's called WeChat. There's two different apps, WeChat or Alipay. So one app or the another or the other. Okay. Also QR codes and things of that nature. So in China, they can't do anything without their phone. And then there's other sub levels like the QR codes. All right, your actual credit score and having the app and everything. Because through those avenues, all right, that they generated is how they identify everything about you, all your information. Okay. And so, and as I spoke of, what would be the next level of, because if these people are now under the social credit scoring system and they can't live without their cell phones, what happens when you take the cell phones away? What's the next level when you take the cell phones away? Well, the next level is to put it inside of them, and we also spoke about that in the clip. What's his fool's name? Elon Musk. All right, talking about he foresees a future. Of course, he foresees because they're trying to conjure it up, right? But foresees a future where even cell phones, all right, are not going to be necessary. Why? Because they want to do what? Raise the bar of their technology, which is getting everything inside of the people. See? So this is all what it's leading up to. The MOTB. Every single avenue is going to lead back to the MOTB. All right. So, and this is a small form of it, okay, being delivered, I guess also into the Americas, right? I think that's the same thing we read above. Available today. Yep, great Apple. Wow, yep. Using their passport, okay, as I just mentioned, from government shutdown to plane shutdowns, all right, to now all of a sudden digital passports, okay. So Apple today announced the launch of digital ID, a new way for users to create an ID in Apple Wallet using information from their U.S. passport and present it with the security and privacy of iPhone or Apple Watch. See, at launch, digital ID acceptance will roll out first in beta at TSA checkpoints at more than 250 airports in the U.S. for in-person identity verification during domestic travel, with additional digital ID acceptance use cases to come in the future. Digital ID uh, gives more people a way to create and present an ID in Apple Wallet, even if they do not have a real ID compliant driver's license or state ID. Digital ID is not uh, okay. Digital ID is not a replacement for a physical passport and cannot be used for international travel and border crossings in lieu of a U.S. passport. So then it begs the question: what's the point of it then? All right. So if I can't pass this on as my passport, what's the point of it? All right. The point is to get people used to it. All right. Break the ice. See. And eventually, I think Apostle Ramallah talks about this from time to time, or he has before. Just about them with their system, getting it into play, and then making the necessary changes. And this sounds like one of those type things. All right, if we can just get people to accept this, we can change it later and say that, hey, now the only way to identify passports is by this same digital passport identity type thing. Hey, but hey, no fear, because you guys already have it. So hey, just switch over. You see. Just make the necessary changes later. With the launch of digital ID, we're excited to expand the ways users can store and present their identity, all with the security. Yeah, I bet they are excited. All with the security and privacy built into iPhone and Apple Watch, said Jennifer Bailey, Apple's vice president of Apple Pay and Apple Wallet. Since introducing the ability to add a driver's license or a state ID to Apple Wallet in 2022, we've seen how much users love having their ID right on their devices. How much users love having their ID right on their devices. Okay, and once again, this is no different from China's social credit score system, man. Because I was showing the through facial recognition, all right? Because that's basically what it is, taking your biometric activities through data collection and all this stuff, and being able to identify you. And then you also have pairing that together with facial recognition. It's no different, man. It's really no different, okay? And they're going to merge that system here in Babylon, all right, under the MOTB little device. Uh, we've seen how much users love having their ID right on their devices. Digital IDs bring this secure and convenient option to even more users across the country, as they can now add an ID to wallet using information from their U.S. passport. See, so they're slowly merging these two things together, all right, and then they'll debate and switch, right. So the launch follows the capability for users to add an eligible driver's license and state ID to Apple Wallet. If users do not have a U.S. passport to create their digital ID, they can still add an eligible driver's license to Apple Wallet. So adding, how much long is this? This is pretty much good. Actually, not too long as I thought. I lost my spot. Where was I? Okay, I think it was here. So adding digital ID to Apple Wallet. Users can easily create and add a digital ID to Apple Wallet using a U.S. passport. They start by tapping the add button at the top of the screen. So I'm not going to read all that because we're not in it, so we can't really see it. I just want some more information about it. How does he create an ID with your passport? Actually, I think it's a video. You know what? Give me a second. I'll turn my Bluetooth off and we'll play it. So this is basically explaining what you're trying to read, but it's kind of hard to read what you can't see. I'm trying to explain steps. Facial recognition portion. And just like that, look, you see how I had a lock up there? That apple, right? Because we know in Genesis, okay, there was no forbidden fruit apple, okay? Those were actually philosophies that were fed to Eve. But, on the left-hand side, okay, what they fed you in the church and stuff like that is that there was a snake and an apple. And we know that serpent of old represents Esau, Edom, and that forbidden fruit, the apple, all right? And then it had a lock on it, all right? Because once they got your information, they locked you into the system, man. Okay, that was interesting there to see that at the end, okay? But this is what it's all about, what their particular data collections are on people, right? They're building up digital profiles on everybody. Okay, so when they issue this micro C-hip to everybody, all right, it will fall right in line. All right, so we already can digitally identify you. All we need you to do is just go and take our C-hip, and you're ready to roll out our facility and go back to your normal life. Using digital ID in Apple Wallet. To present a digital ID in person, users can double click the side button. Okay, we don't have to read all that. How to present your digital ID to TSA with iPhone. Yeah, I see me watch it. It's only 30 seconds. So basically, they're saying, what they said is that you still have to have your passport, but this here, having this digital form of a passport identification or whatever, it just makes things run smoother. It may make things more convenient, right? And then eventually, just like they did with like when you fill out an application, no more paper applications. They took that away. Everything's digital. You got to go into the store or do it from online somewhere at home or a library or something. They're just eventually going to probably do away with the paper, booklet, passports, and then just have your digital passport for use. So they're not slick. Presenting digital ID in a secure and private way. Like all IDs in Apple Wallet, digital ID takes advantage of the privacy and security features already built into iPhone and Apple Watch to help protect against tampering and theft. Digital ID data is encrypted. When users create a digital ID, their passport data is stored on the device. Apple cannot see when and where users present their ID. Oh, yeah. That's funny. Yeah, right. Or what data was presented. Biometric authentication using Face ID, or they have their whole thing is about collecting your data, man. But yeah, we're going to collect your data, but we're not going to look into it. We don't know what's going on with your data, man. This it's okay. Come on, man, stop it. Apple cannot see when and where users present their ID. Yeah, of course they will, because they'll be able to go into the server. It's like what's that called? What's that thing called? Your what's the name of it? Man, what is the name of it? Your shoot. The thing from man, like on the computer. Man, I forget that. Man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of what I'm on. My headset went off too. Man, when they your man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of the name I'm looking for. Shoot. Your IP address. I think that's it. That's what I was looking for. Your IP address. Okay. It says, like all IDs in Apple Wallet, digital ID takes advantage of the privacy and security features already built into iPhone and Apple Watch to help protect against tampering and theft. Digital ID. Hold on, give me a second here. Okay, right, so it says to help protect against tampering and theft, digital ID data is encrypted. When users create a digital ID, their passport data is stored on the device. Apple cannot see when and where users present their ID or what data was presented. Biometric authentication using Face ID or Touch ID also ensures that only the owner of the digital ID can present it. Only the information needed for a transaction is presented, and the user has the opportunity to review and authorize the information being requested with Face ID or Touch ID before it is shared. Users do not need to unlock, show, or hand over their device to present their ID. All right, so and that's pretty much the end. I guess we'll read it. It's the last thing. So driver's license and state IDs in Apple Wallet today. The introduction of digital ID brings users another easy, secure, and private way to create, store, and present an ID in Apple Wallet. Today, the ability to add a driver's license or state ID to Apple Wallet is live in 12 states and Puerto Rico. In the past 6 months alone, the feature has come to Montana, North Dakota, and West Virginia and launched internationally for the first time in Japan with My Number Card on iPhone. With My Number Card on iPhone. I guess maybe that's the name of the app, My Number Card. So yeah, there you go. Apple introduces digital ID, a new way to create and present an ID in Apple Wallet. And I want to go back real quick because I saw this other. It was a video. So Trump, I'm not sure if it was in line with this or not. Hopefully we don't get clipped off because it'll happen. Okay, this is something else. It's a different video. So yeah, we're not even going to get into that. All right, so yeah, that was that. And I got one more thing that I want to get into before we close out here. And I'll put it in real quick. Okay, so this is a question that I asked. The thing here yesterday because I thought it was a very interesting question, and I thought it was more interesting what came up. Okay, so because we know we're in the downfall of America right now. Okay, what types of and the scriptures say there's nothing new under the sun. All right, people reincarnate, empires and things of that nature. All right, and so I want to put what types of criminal activities took place during the fall of ancient Rome. And Lord will, the same thing comes up that I saw yesterday that I read. All right, so, yep, here we go. It says, during the fall of the Western Roman Empire, criminal activities included common offenses like murder, theft, and robbery, which increased due to social disorder as well as systemic crimes like corruption, extortion, smuggling, and treason. And you can check off all these things on the list. Okay. If you think about it, America was often these people at these high level companies, all right, and pretty much taking over their companies. Like the one that got found, I think he was like found on the beach, beheaded or chopped up or something like that. And so those things were happening, kind of taking place back to back. All right. So yeah, things like that are happening. All right. Murder, theft, and robbery, corruption. You see, the whole government has never been non-corrupt, but you get the point. All right. Corruption. Okay. Extortion. All right. And that's a big one because we just talked about the fake ICE agents. All right. Going around, trying to sexually assault people, extort them for money, and other things of that nature. All right, in that one article we read about trying to rob an ATM. Okay, why would ICE agents be robbing an ATM? Because they're not ICE agents. All right, corruption, extortion, smuggling. Mind you, the question was what types of criminal activities took place during the fall of ancient Rome, and we are in the revival of the ancient Roman Empire. All right, America, Babylon the Great. Okay, the West. So offenses like murder, theft, and robbery, which increased due to social disorder, as well as systemic crimes like corruption, extortion, smuggling, and treason. The breakdowns here, because in ancient Rome, there was a lot of deletions going on, backstabbers and things of that nature, vying for power. the breakdown of central authority and the rise of warlordism. This is the first time I've seen that word. Warlordism, okay? The breakdown of central authority and the rise of warlordism exacerbated these issues, okay? Let me copy that. Let me copy that word here. Okay. Common criminal activities. Murder and assault. These basic crimes were prevalent, driven by personal disputes, greed, and general instability. Theft and robbery. Okay, with the deterioration of effective. Hold on, let me go back. It says murder and assault. These basic crimes were prevalent, driven by personal disputes, greed, and general instability. And you have all these things happening right now. All right, you have people who have personal disputes, like we just use, so-called racism for an example. Okay, you got red and bubblegum Esau. All right, has this Edomite supremacy about himself. Okay, and then he has this. We don't know who's who, but he can just go out there and impersonate an ICE agent to get his rocks off. Okay, greed. All right, the impersonators. Some of these impersonators are what? All right, trying to rob people, extort people, rob the ATMs. All right, and general instability. And this country is just pretty much unstable in itself. All right, like it says in Jeremiah, where it says we would have healed Babylon. She is not healed, because the Lord is about to dismantle this place. But before he completely just takes it out of order, all right, he's going to bring, heavy judgment here. In the time of Jacob's trouble, it's going to be mass chaos. All right, it says, let me get 6. Jeremiah 51:6. Okay. It says, flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity. For this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. You see, this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her? Take balm for her pain. If so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and she is lifted up even to the skies. And that links together with Revelation 18th chapter, man. All right, so this is the ultimate, what we read before, the will of the Lord is the Lord's about to destroy this place, man. Where there's a lot of things that have happened inside of this place before he completely dismantles it, right, by the missiles. Theft and robbery. With the deterioration of effective police forces, the vigils, I guess, in Rome were primarily a fire brigade and limited police force. Petty and grand theft were common problems in crowded urban centers and on rural roads. Okay, and you're gonna see that take an uptick where it says we'll just put, that's what I'm looking for. Second, just 15. Okay, you're gonna see these people just get out of control in a second here. And to some level, some degree they're already doing that. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and evading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. See? And man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. And we've seen that on a low level with these flights and stuff, right? So yeah, going back, it says, petty and grand theft were common problems in crowded urban centers and on rural roads. Piracy, while an ancient problem, piracy continued to be a significant issue, disrupting trade networks and targeting coastal towns for plunder and kidnapping people to be sold as slaves. and a lot of these people are just disappearing, by ICE, and you're not hearing about them. Okay, or you supposedly they're going to a facility, but nobody's hearing from these people in these facilities. Okay, so it says vandalism and arson. These crimes were also common, often a result of social unrest or the general chaos. That goes into these riots and these protests. These people are getting to some degree violent. Okay, trashing police cars, fighting back against the law enforcement, ICE or whoever, set things on fire, busting up storefronts, things of that nature. That comes when protests turn violent, which protests turning violent mean they turn into riots. Okay, fraud and forgery, economic troubles, and a complex, often corrupt bureaucracy provide opportunities for various forms of fraud. Okay, systemic and political crimes, government corruption. This was a major contributing factor to the fall of Rome. Officials frequently engaged in bribery, embezzlement, and nepotism. The practice of buying public office was common, buying your way into power, with officials then using their positions to recoup their investment through illicit means. Extortion. Roman soldiers and officials in the late empire often extorted money and goods from the local populace. As central authority weakened and payrolls became irregular. That's a heavy one. Okay, now these things may not be occurring the same way as they occurred in ancient Rome, but the thing is that some of these things are reoccurring now, because we just mentioned in the scripture says that there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, can anyone say that this thing has been of old time is new? Okay, let me see here. Ecclesiastes 1:9, the thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. All right. So yeah. Treason and sedition. See, we just read that second Esdras, right? Sedition, treason and sedition. Plots in the highest level, which is, I mean, whether you call it or not, the highest level of targeting when it comes to sedition is those that speak this truth, all right, of the Bible. But let's keep going. Treason and sedition. Plots against the emperor and the state were frequent. And we're not plotting against anyone, okay? As scripture say, wait ye upon me to the day that I rise up to the prey. He says, vengeance belongeth unto me. All right, those are the words of the Lord through the mouths of his prophets. With the Praetorian Guard, in particular, known for their role as kingmakers, using violence and corruption to advance their own interests. Yeah, the Praetorian Guard played a big part in a lot of these assassinations. All right, some men, trying to get power over the next man, or this man acting all, he's tripping, and so they come together and say, all right, we're gonna take this guy out and put another guy in power, and we'll pledge our allegiance to him and protect him, unless he gets out of line, or maybe someone pays us off. Tax evasion and smuggling. Heavy taxation and a collapsing economy led to widespread attempts to evade taxes or smuggle goods to avoid import duties. Illegal assemblies and religious persecution. Okay, certain groups, including early Christians before the Edict of Milan, were persecuted and often charged with capital crimes such as sacrilege, introducing an alien cult, or treason for refusing to worship the Roman gods or the emperor. What do you think? Don't we fit into that category now? Because we worship Yahweh Bashem Shah. Okay, so they deem us as heretics. What we speak is treason. All right, they'll use their deep fakes and their all this kind of stuff like that to say that we're trying to overthrow the government or take out the president, or I don't know, fight back against the federal law, for whatever they want to say. All right, they can say through their AI technology, which is demonic. Okay. So it says the decline of central authority, economic collapse, and external invasions all contributed to a general breakdown in a law and order, leading to an increase in both opportunistic and organized criminal activity. All right. I almost want to look into the Edict of Milan. I do have this thing pasted, so maybe we can just pop it up real quick. I don't want to get too far into that. Probably not important, but why not? The Edict of Milan was a proclamation of religious tolerance in the Roman Empire, issued in 313 CE by the Emperors Constantine I, ruler of the West, which I think he was Jake, and Licinius, ruler of the East. It granted full authority to Christians and all others to observe their preferred religion freely and openly without fear of persecution. And you actually have that in Babylon. because you have all different types of nations here, all different types of gods and idols here. All right, and that's why the Lord says that the Lord alone shall be exalted in those days. They're going to throw their idols to the moles and to the, let me see if I can get that, to the moles and to the bats. All right, and stuff like that. Because you have different nationalities of different countries all here piled up together in Babylon. Okay, and when that day comes, all right, not Miles, I want moles. I know I was typing. Okay, when that, I should just pull it up. It's okay. But when that day comes, okay, the Lord's gonna showcase his power. And these people are gonna realize that their gods are fake. Okay. He says that in, I think it's Psalms like 92 something, 3. But there are no gods, okay, something like that. The gods of the nations are idols. Look, check this out. Isaiah 2:18. And the idols he shall utterly abolish, and they shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth, for fear of your Lord Yahweh, and for the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake terribly the earth. In that day, a man shall cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats. See, to go into the clefts of the rocks and into the tops of the ragged rocks, for fear of the Lord Yahweh, and for the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake terribly the earth. Because he's about to showcase his power just like he did in ancient Egypt, man. Okay. So it granted full authority to Christians and all others to observe their preferred religion freely and openly without fear of persecution. And we had a martyr who, because he wouldn't burn a candle to the emperor, which basically would show that you reverence him, respect him, or whatever, you worship him. So he was willing to die rather than to do something, even though it was simple as burning a candle. But he understood what lighting that candle meant, all right, which is him putting someone before our power, right, Yahweh, okay, which goes back to what the Exodus chapter 20, you shall have no other gods before me. Key provisions and effects: religious freedom. The primary provision was to ensure complete religious liberty for everyone in the empire. This officially ended the state-sponsored persecution of Christians that had occurred intermittently for centuries. Restoration of property. The edict mandated the prompt return of all confiscated church property and places of worship to Christian communities. Compensation from the state treasury was offered to those who had legally purchased this property from the government. Political and social stability. The emperors presented the edict as a pragmatic decision aimed at securing divine favor and ensuring the well-being and stability of the state. They believed that a tolerant policy would prevent social unrest and potential divine wrath. Shift in status. The edict did not make Christianity the official state religion. That would happen later with the Edict of Thessalonica in 380 CE under Emperor Theodosius I. However, it elevated Christianity from a persecuted minority faith to a legally recognized and favored religion, allowing it to flourish and grow rapidly. Now, real quick, to add on and make sure you understand, maybe someone's new. When it says Christians here, it's not talking about these churches today. You see churches on the corner just call themselves Christians. They're just using a name. All right, those true Christians were Israelites. Okay, majority really, well, I can't say one tribe. We would just say Israelites in general, because you had those, Judea, then you had the Gentile Israelites. And it says that in Acts 11, and I think it's 26, they were called Christians first at Antioch. Okay, so basically they were followers of Yahushua. All right, anointed or whatever. All right, followers of the anointed, however you want to put it. So they were called the Christians as to mock them. So when it says Christians, it's not talking about these modern day people in these churches. Okay, these Christians are talking about ancient Israelites that worshipped Yahushua, the true Lord. Okay, and not no doggone Jesus the Christ or whatever. Okay, and just throwing around a name for a church and stuff like that. Just using a name for a church, not really understanding any history behind it. Okay. Significance. The Edict of Milan marked a major turning point in the history of Christianity and Western civilization. It allowed the Christian church to develop its structure, acquire wealth, and play a prominent public role in Roman society, laying the groundwork for Christianity to become the dominant cultural and political force in Europe for centuries to come. And Esau kind of took hold to a degree and kind of watered those things down when he came with his over here to the Americas. All right, coming to the Israelites here in America. All right. So I want to look at this word warlordism. I didn't forget it. Warlordism is a condition of a state or region where central governmental authority is weak or has collapsed. A political and military control is exercised by individual military commanders, known as warlords, who rely on their own armed forces to govern specific limited territories. And I don't know if it's true or not, or if it's going to happen or not, but there was a talk of, Trump trying to create his own little personal army, right? We'll see. These figures typically operate without legal or national legitimacy, prioritizing their own self-interest and personal power. Key characteristics of warlordism: weak central authority. Warlordism thrives in the absence of a strong national government capable of enforcing a monopoly on violence across its entire territory. Okay. Private armies. Warlords maintain personal militias or armies whose loyalty is to the individual leader, not the state or a national con. You know what this makes you think about? The Civil War movie. All right, you had the the Eastern forces and the Western forces. I can't remember which side was which, but the one that went inside to fight the other forces to go and we'll say delete the president at the end of the movie. Okay, it says not the state or the national constitution. Now, you see, because they're trying to they're slowly doing away with the constitution. People think they have rights and they don't have rights, man. Okay, they're slowly showing you that you don't have rights, and every step of their agenda that they fulfill, they show you more and more and more that you don't have rights. And if you have any kind of rights, don't worry, we're going to show you at the end of this thing that you're going to have none. Okay. Troops are often drawn, but see, those of us that believe in the Lord, all right, we're good, okay, because we know that this man can't hold us. Everything is controlled by the Heavenly Father, right? Yahweh Bashim Awashah, okay. So we know and understand that He's not going to do anything that the Lord has not allowed Him to do, all right. And we know by way of reading the scriptures, all right, that the victory is to the Israelites through our Lord, all right, Yahweh Shah. Troops are often drawn from the local populace or are mercenaries, and their loyalty is often ensured by payment or promises or plunder. Promises of plunder. So I guess what threat? Territorial control. Each warlord controls a specific subnational region, exercising de facto military, economic, and political power within that area. Extraction of resources. Warlords secure their power and wealth by extorting rent or resources from the populace or through illegal activities like smuggling, and they use violence or the threat of it to maintain this system. Continuous conflict. The system is often characterized by chronic instability, civil strife, and shifting alliances as rival warlords compete for power, territory, and resources. Lack of legitimacy. Unlike a king or a legitimate general, a warlord's authority is based solely on force rather than established law or divine. That's funny. What is he doing? All right, he's sending out ICE. All right, you got a border patrol mixing up amongst ICE, and then he's made the what they call the QRF, quick response forces, which is like 500. Well, say for a few cities, but the average city, or state, I should say, 500 standby troops that are ready to go and put out, a riot, of these people that are protesting, rioting, and things of that nature. Okay, and then you have, which I believe those are National Guard troops, but then you have the actual military and things of that nature. That's interesting. Unlike a king or a legitimate general, a warlord's authority and America's pretty much at war. All right, look at what they're doing with Venezuela, and then you also have them as I guess you would call a proxy war, or even if it's not a proxy war, just with weapons and fundings and things of that nature, to other mainly places like the state of Israel or Ukraine, all right, stuff like that. But then you also have America, who's like the situation we mentioned before, China speaking about taking back Taiwan, which I believe it goes all the way back to when Biden was in power. But China talking about taking back Taiwan. Okay. No, there was that's one. The other one, it was I'm thinking about North Korea and South Korea, right? So you had I think is South Korea, where you pretty much had Japan and America kind of in the background of South Korea, which made, I think it's North Korea with Kim Jong-un, So what he did, he's skated out all up north and went to go, chop it up with Putin and pretty much the BRICS. All right. So it's like, okay, so you want to get in this business, because North Korea, South Korea have been going back and forth for a while. North Korea trying to ultimately take over. Which I believe North Korea is the one with Kim Jong-un. And so you had Japan and America, all up in the mix there with South Korea. So that pissed off North Korea. So they went up to talk to Russia. All right. So you got things of that nature. Everybody's fighting everybody somewhere. Okay. But this is all, for World War III. Okay. So, it says based solely on force rather than established law or divine right, although they may sometimes be appointed to formal government positions to provide a semblance of legitimacy. So how long is this? Okay, we're almost done. I'm starting to wonder. Historical examples. Warlordism has appeared in various contexts throughout history. Oh, wow. I didn't expect to see this. Check this out. It says fall of Western Roman Empire, which makes sense because it was in the last thing that we were in, but I didn't expect to see it here. Fall of the Western Roman Empire. During its decline, the Western Roman Empire saw the rise of Roman and barbarian strongmen and military commanders such as Flavius Aetius, Ricimer, Orestes, and Odoacer. I believe we talked about him one time before. One of those pivotal battles he was in at the end of this fall of Western Rome. He was in one of those pivotal battles. Odoacer, however you pronounce his name, who controlled various provinces or remnants of the empire, ultimately leading to its fragmentation into smaller post-Roman kingdoms. This period can be compared to the warlord era of other histories. China's warlord era, 1916-1928, about 12 years after the death of Yuan Shikai, China fractured into numerous regions ruled by various military cliques as the national government in Beijing lost internal control. Medieval Europe. Max Weber and other theorists suggested that classic feudalism in pre-modern Europe exhibited aspects of warlordism, where monarchs relied on powerful independent feudal lords who maintained private armies, negotiated for privileges. Modern examples, contemporary examples of warlordism can be found in regions such as Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, and Democratic Republic of the Congo, where central governments are weak and unable to establish a monopoly on the use of force. All right. So I know you saw me grab that. Okay. And I just wanted to define feudal. Feudal describes a political, economic, and social system primarily in medieval Europe from the 9th to 15th centuries, where society was structured around their relationships between lords, vassals, and serfs based on land ownership and personal loyalty. So lords, vassal states to that particular country under that lord, and serfs, which is basically the slave class, working class people, based on land ownership and personal loyalty. All right. Key components of a feudal system. Land for service. There's a fief. Hierarchy. Society was organized in a strict pyramid-like structure. Monarch, king, theoretically owned on the land and granted large portions of powerful nobles, barons, councils, lords, nobles, vassals, and knights. Serfs, peasants, as we just talked about, formed the vast majority of the population. They were not slaves, but were bound to the land or manor and worked it for the Lord in exchange for a place to live and protection from conflict. And that's what Esau wants to do now, with his universal basic income. He wants everybody, run down, pour out, out of their wits, looking for him for a solution. Okay, taking the UBI, and basically with the UBI, he funds everybody what they need for rent and light and food and some minor other expenses. All right, and then whatever is not spent goes back to the government, and then they reload every month, and that's the cycle. Okay, of you will own nothing and be happy. See, because you're renting your life from them, and they're actually giving you the money to rent this life. See. You own nothing, you would be happy, right? Because they want to control the whole entire population of the earth through their digital system. Decentralized power. I was going to stop, but let me read some more. Feudalism emerged in times of weak central government, allowing local lords to exercise significant authority, including judicial and military power over their domains. Manorialism. This was the economic component of the feudal system, where the manor served as the basic self-sufficient economic unit. Serfs worked the lord's land, the mezzanine, and gave a portion of their produce or labor in return for their own strips of land to farm. In essence, the feudal system created a network. I'm surprised they didn't mention Japan, all right? Feudal Japan, stuff like that. Anyways, in essence, the feudal system created a network of mutual obligations where those with power and land provided protection to those beneath them, who in turn provided labor or military service. All right, so that's pretty much it there. I know we did a lot more than I expected, but it's okay. Just a little various article session, and we ended off with a question that I had yesterday, and we got a lot more out of that question than I expected too. But we're going to leave it at that. Lord willing, you edify to next time. That's what I want to say. Shalom.